Hello there students, welcome back to this video series. This is your instructor LJIET, and today we would be talking about one of the most important things which you all would go through once you join any job or business after completion of your engineering, that is meetings. What exactly is meetings? What are their purposes? And amidst talking about different types of written technical communication, how come I started talking about meetings? Wasn't it oral technical communication? Questions. Students, even meetings have requirements of some written documents. And today, I would be teaching you about these documents, how to formulate them, and I would give you some of the tips to make them beautiful. Let us start by first understanding that what exactly a meeting is. What is a meeting, students? Meeting is where a group of people performing different functions in an organization come together for a specific purpose, specific project, or specific discussion. There can be different reasons why these set of people get together. Meeting is actually a formalized communication consisting of different people in the organization. Remember it. It is internal to the organization and all the people participating are part of your own company or organization. Meetings are the places where many discussions takes place, whether formal or informal. Oh yes, informal is little out of task right now, but yes, many informal discussions too take place in these meetings. Let us see that what are the purposes due to which meetings are held. Basically, meetings are held for two major purposes: informational purpose and decision making purpose. What are different types of meetings under these two categories? Obviously, I am not leaving you under only two heads. There are many different variations under these two heads. Let us understand those. First, starting with informational meetings. What are different types of informational meetings and why are they held? First and foremost, informational meetings are held for disclosing any sensitive information or talking about some information, sharing some information, or disclosing this with different people. For example, an employee is being fired due to poor behavior. This information can be disclosed during a meeting. For example, an organization has recently suffered lot of losses due to one of the person being a spy of competitor. Such kind of informations will be discussed with closed doors and in the meetings. These are informational meetings where only one person tends to impart the information to all the other members of the meeting. Moving forward to next type of informational meeting, to explore new ideas and concepts, to identify and to dwell upon new ideas and concepts. Someone would be presenting his or her new idea for maybe some project, for maybe new machineries, for maybe better attendance system for the employees, etc. Any such type of ideas can be brought upon in a meeting and can be left upon for others to review. The third type of informational meetings are to provide feedback after the launch of a particular product or after successfully implementing someone's idea. Again, a meeting would be held to provide feedback to that particular person or about that particular product. This is also a meeting where you tend to provide feedback. Moving onwards, to present a report. If any person has made a detailed report, it can be report after he or she has visited some foreign country or after some foreign counterpart has visited the office and has just left, or if the person has participated in some global level project. All these things call for a report. This report would be presented to other members of the organization in this meeting, where others too can learn how they can be successful in all such activities. Also, they can learn from the mistakes of this particular person and can study the details of the report. Moving onwards towards the decision making meetings. As I told you, there are two major purposes of the meetings: informational meetings and decision making meetings. We already talked about informational meetings. Now we would be talking about what are the types of decision making meetings which are held. First and foremost, to reach to a group decision. If an entire group is entitled to take the decision for one particular product or for one particular strategy to be implemented, then to arrive consensus of this group. For example, if a group is given some project, to arrive at a consensus about who will do what, about what activities would be conducted by each one of them, who is better in those activities. In short, to reach to a group consensus, as we talked about in our group discussions, to reach to a consensus, to achieve success in a group-based activity, the decision-making meetings are held. Unlike informational meetings, here each and every person has equal amount of participation, because here only a single person is not imparting any knowledge, but everyone is discussing something to arrive at one particular decision. Moving onwards, other type of decision making meetings are held to solve a problem at hand. There can be different problems which can arrive in organization, like lift not working, an employee leaving the organization between some project, or financial crisis. It's very common. To solve these problems, you can take opinions of different people in your meeting. Moving onwards, these decisional meetings can also be held to resolve or reconcile a conflict. If two employees are in a conflict, or if two organizations are in a conflict, to resolve these conflicts, to discuss the pros and cons of this conflict, to solve this conflict, meetings can be held. Moving onwards, next type of meetings for decision making purpose is to negotiate an agreement. Before you are putting forward an agreement to other party or to other organization, obviously you want your top heads to look into that agreement and to check whether all the ifs and buts are included in the agreement or not. So you want your financial advisor, your legal advisor, everyone to check upon the agreement. This can be done in a meeting where different clauses would be added or different clauses can be taken out too. So this type of meeting would be to decide that what agreement will you have with other parties. Moving onwards, the last type of decision making meetings are to an acceptance for a new idea, plan or a system. A new idea regarding any type of employee behavior, or regarding any new project, or regarding any processes being held in the organization. All these new ideas are very well welcome, but before they are implemented, they need to pass through the Agni Pariksha of the meetings. They need to pass through all the employees of the meetings, and if they agree upon this new idea or concept, you are in the win situation and the concept can be implemented. These are different purposes for which meetings are held. As I promised, now we need to learn the two types of documents which need to be prepared, one before the meeting and two at the end of the meeting. Firstly, we would start with the first document, which is known as agenda of meeting. Before any meeting commences, it is compulsory to write a notice of the meeting, and along with the notice you will mention the agenda of the meeting. What is an agenda of the meeting? An agenda is a list of individual items that need to be discussed in the meeting, and it should be included along with the notice. Now, what is a notice? Notice is and information to all the participating people that at what time and at which place the meeting is held. It is advisable to send this notice at least a week prior to the meeting. Okay, emergency meeting notices can be sent on the same day, but if it is an important meeting where you do not want much absence, then make sure that you send the notice early. Along with that, you can mention the agenda of the meeting. If the agenda is very short, it can be included below the notice itself. If it is very long, you can send a separate mail or a separate document. Traditionally, a single notice is formulated and it is sent to all the different departments, to all the different people who would read the document, sign it and pass it onwards. This is the traditional methodology. Nowadays, you can just send a notice via an email or via just a WhatsApp message. That is simple enough. So, you can send a notice separately and an agenda separately, or you can combine them both and send it to each and every participant of the meeting. Make sure that everyone receives this. Agenda would be the list or the track of activities in the perfect organized order, so that you would not lose the track during the meeting and the discussion will not go wayward. You need to know that what is to be done when during the meeting. And you need to make sure that this agenda has written it very precisely, very perfectly. If not, then the meetings would take longer time than anticipated and our time management would go wayward, right? So students, make sure that you make a very good agenda before the meeting commences or the meeting starts. And this agenda must be circulated to each and every member. Let us see that what are some of the guidelines to write this agenda. Ma'am, how can we write an agenda? What should we take care of? This is what you should take care of. These are some guidelines which you must know. First and foremost, limit the number of agenda items. 3 to 6 is the golden rule. Make sure that on the same day, in the same meeting, you only discuss 3 to 6 items, not more than that. Otherwise, you would not be able to justify the content properly. That is why limit your contents, limit your list of items to discuss on the same day. Secondly, make sure that you do not dwell too much into past. What has happened is happened. Whatever was discussed in the past meeting, it is discussed in the past meeting. Just move forward. Talk more about future. Talk more about what you can do about a specific situation. The situation has already arrived. Obviously, you cannot go to the past and change it. Better find a solution and talk about future. Only then the meeting can be fruitful. Otherwise, it cannot be. Moving onwards, make sure that you present opportunities and not problems. Yes, each problem brings along with it an opportunity. So instead of discussing that we have this problem, we are facing technical difficulties, we are facing lack of resources, etc., just discuss opportunities. We are missing some of the technical expertise. This is an opportunity where we can hire new experts. Keep the atmosphere of the meeting more positive, more pliable. Make sure that you develop an atmosphere which is more opportunistic instead of very negative and gruesome. It would lead to fruitful meetings. Make sure that in the agenda you allocate ample amount of time for each and every topic of discussion. Secondly, do not make the agenda so rigid that it lacks flexibility. Yes, we are making an agenda so that everything is completed on time and everything is structured and organized. But do allocate at least required amount of time to particular tasks or particular activities. Otherwise, at the time of meeting, everything would go confused and wavered. So make sure that you allocate ample amount of time in these meetings while drafting an agenda. In the agenda, include sufficient details. Include proper details about who the participants are, who would be present at the meeting, who would not be present at the meeting, what for the meeting is being held, what are different activities to be discussed, what are the points which will not be discussed. Make sure that you include all the particulars in your agenda and everyone gets to know those particulars very well. One more tip from my side, use simple language. Do not use heavy jargons or technical words while you write an agenda because it is being circulated to all the participants. If it is more simple, it would be more well understood. That is what your aim is. Moving onwards, let us see one of the examples of our agenda of meeting. As you can see, this agenda is written along with the notice itself. As this is the 5th meeting, each and every agenda is marked as 5.01, 5.02 and so on. In the agenda you can see that firstly something is written as minutes of last meeting. What is this minutes? We would discuss in just few minutes, just give me time. But before this meeting starts, if it is not the first meeting, then some of the things of the last meetings would be discussed from the minutes. After that the meeting commences and all the agenda, all the matters which would be discussed in the meeting are listed in this particular agenda. Okay, moving forward, let us see what is meant by minutes of meeting. As I already told you, just give me a few seconds. I would be discussing minutes of meeting right now with you. I told you that there are two types of documents. Before the meeting, you need to write the agenda of the meeting. After the meeting, you need to write the minutes of the meeting. What is minutes of the meeting? Minutes of the meeting are the record of what happened at the meeting. What things happened at the meeting, what was discussed, who discussed it, how it was discussed, etc. A huge list. It can be of different formats which we would discuss in some amount of time. But the point is, who will write the minutes? Ma'am, everyone would be busy discussing. Who would write the minutes of meeting? Should everyone write the minutes of meeting? No. Everyone is not designated the work of writing the minutes of meeting. Traditionally, the secretary of the company is designated this work. He or she is particularly attending the meeting only for the purpose of writing down the minutes of meeting. Minutes of meeting is a record of everything that happened in this particular meeting. Generally, secretary writes them. More in modern organizations, the manager or the chairperson himself makes a brief note and after that gets it formatted by his or her secretary because they don't trust on secretaries, right? So there is a possibility that whoever is writing the minutes of meeting, but that person is specifically designated for this work only. He or she will not participate in any discussion in the meeting. They would only be writing the ongoings of the meeting perfectly without missing any point. That is very important. Let us try and understand that how minutes of meeting are classified. As I told you, minutes of meeting can be written in different formats. Which are they? Particularly, there are two formats, formal minutes of meeting and informal minutes of meeting. But both of them are further divided into three types. First, we would discuss about formal minutes of meeting. As the name suggests, it is more formal, more structured and more strict. Which are the formal minutes of meeting? First is minimal minutes of meeting. Here, very less information about the meeting is recorded. Only maybe the date, time, the number of meeting and the basic conclusions that were drawn in the meeting, and that's it. Second type of minutes of meeting are medium minutes of meeting. This has more information compared to minimal minutes of meeting. Here, the little information about each and every topic which was listed in agenda is given, but entire information or entire document, each and everything is not written. Only the problem, the discussion and the conclusion. Each and everything will not be recorded. Minimal information about each and every agenda is written. Moving onwards, the third type of minutes of meeting, formal minutes of meeting, are verbatim. Verbatim means each and every word by word, sentence by sentence, letter by letter is recorded and written down for this particular meeting. Everything word to word as it is recorded, and the entire meeting, it is just like a written format of that particular meeting. Everything, even if one person has said a single word the, this the is recorded in the minutes of meeting. It is so specific. Okay, only if need arises, verbatim format is used, otherwise it is unnecessary. Moving onwards, let us try to see the example of formal minutes of meeting. This is an example of formal minutes of meeting. As you can see, the minutes of meeting consists of present employees, absent employees, the details of each and every agenda, written briefly. Can you tell me that which format of formal minutes it is following? Oh yes, you are right. It is the medium format, right? It is not the minimalist and it is not a verbatim approach. Word by word, everything is not written, but yes, the little discussions and conclusions for each agenda is given. So these minutes of meeting are medium, and more organizations follow this type of behavior. Moving onwards, let us try to understand the other type of minutes of meeting, which are informal minutes of meeting. As the name suggests, it is informal and less strict. Here you do not need to follow a specific format. Here you do not need to write each and everything word by word. You can write just like you are scribbling in any notepad, that's it. But informal minutes do have some format. Bullet point list, you are just mentioning the major points which are discussed in the meeting in form of bullet points. Or a table format, you would make a table, you would write in one column that what are the points being discussed. In second column you would write that which are the persons who discussed this point. In third column you can write what are the conclusions drawn from that point, etc. Lastly, a narrative report. Narrative report is a descriptive report of this meeting in the own words of the writer of the minutes of meeting. There is a difference in verbatim and narrative report approach. Verbatim means each and everything discussed in the meeting is quoted as it is what is said by the person. While in narrative report, here the writer of the minutes of meeting can change whatever was discussed in the meeting and can showcase his or her own opinion of the entire meeting. The narration is done by the writer and he or she narrates in his or her own words. So there is a difference. In verbatim, it is the words of the participants themselves. Here it is the words of the narrator. That is the difference. Remember it. Let us see one of the example of informal minutes of meeting. As you can see, this is an example of bulleted list. Okay, here you do not need to follow the format. You can see here that we have not written the date, the number of meeting, the decimal points for each and every agenda. Everything is not necessary. As I just told you, you can just put a bullet and scribble anything out. That much is enough. Okay. Moving onwards, let us see some of the prerequisites of minutes of meeting. Before writing the minutes of meeting, these are the things which you must have. First and foremost, you must be having a list of participants who are going to attend the meeting and who are going to remain absent from the meeting. This list must be very well available with you. Secondly, you must be having a copy of agenda and all the accompanying papers. Obviously, if you are not knowing the agenda, how the meeting will go forward. So having an agenda is a must. Have with you the agenda which was decided and all the papers along with it, so that in accordance with the agenda you can write the minutes of meeting. Thirdly, to write the minutes of meeting, you must be having a copy of all the formal resolutions being proposed. In the agenda, what are the things which would be discussed must be known to you beforehand. What are different resolutions which are being proposed by different participants? What is their agenda should also be known to you. One more thing, you must be having a copy of the presentations being given. If someone is going to give out a presentation, you must have a copy of that presentation. You must have 2 copies of minutes of meeting of the last meeting, because it is the one which will be discussed during this meeting very initially. Okay, so there must be 2 copies, 1 copy to be signed by the chairperson. Each and every minutes of meeting after being prepared will be signed by the chairperson in the next meeting, will be verified and signed by the chairperson in the next meeting. So one of the minutes of meeting are for the signature, second minutes of meeting is for the reference of other members and for your own reference during the meeting, that what was the last meeting about and is this meeting a continuation, what are the points which are similar, what were the things which were discussed previously already. All these things can be known very nicely from the previous minutes of meeting. Okay, what other thing you must have? Copies of any suggested amendments already received. If there are some amendments in the previous minutes of meeting, make sure that you have those amendments handy, and if possible you have already done those amendments in the minutes of meeting before being presented to the chairperson. Okay, you must also be having notes of apology of the person who are missing this meeting. If some of the participants are staying absent, then you must be having their apology letter or absent letter along with you, so that you can know that whether the person is arriving or not. That was all about the guidelines. Lastly, I would like to give you some of the tips for writing the minutes of meetings very nicely. First and foremost, make sure that you write the fair copy of minutes of meeting within 1 week of the meeting itself, because only if it is fresh in your mind you can reconstruct things and very nicely elaborate it in your minutes of meeting. Okay, so make sure that within 1 week you complete all the tasks related to that meeting and all the minutes of meeting. Secondly, properly mention that what were the things discussed in the meeting. Thirdly, who was designated, what type of work in the meeting should be mentioned in your minutes of meeting. What are the deadlines? What is the schedule they must follow? All these things must be included. Get the minutes of meeting signed by each and every participant, and if they have any changes, then ask them to submit these changes to you within the week, because you need to make a fair copy. Accept the changes if someone has a problem with your narration or your return minutes of meeting, because there are chances of miscommunication. Make sure this thing doesn't happen. Get this properly signed by the chairperson in the next meeting, and if the chairperson wants some changes or amendments in this minutes of meeting, do so before the next meeting. Okay. Also, make sure that minutes of meeting have the list of what are the things left to be discussed and which are to be carried forward to the next meeting. Take care of all these simple things and you would be an expert in writing the minutes of meeting. That was all about meetings for today. That's it from my side, students. This is Dhruvi signing off. Thank you so much for listening to me such patiently. Bye until next time.